Good afternoon. Call to order this regular meeting of the San Bernardino International Airport Authority this Wednesday, April 25th. Have anything to add to closed session?
Nothing to add, sir.
Do we have any speakers for closed session?
No, sir.
Thank you. We will recess here and come back after closed session.
I know we're making progress.
Thank you. I call to order the open session. And at this time, we've asked Mayor McCallum to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please join me as we salute the flag of our great country. Ready? Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a report out from closed session.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. No reportable action was taken in closed session. As to agenda items, closed session agenda item B as in Bravo and E as in Echo, Supervisor Ramos was not in the room during those discussions as he recused himself for those two items.
Thank you. Any items to be added or deleted to the agenda?
No items.
Thank you. Any conflict of interest to close? I have one for item number 12. I will recuse myself and turn the time over to Supervisor Ramos at that point. Now I'll move to informational items.
I'll be quite brief, given the hour. I don't want to steal your thunder, but I hear on Friday we will be having a State of the City address at our airport terminal building. So again, the airport's pleased to support that, and it's been well attended in years past. So we look forward to another good event. You do have a marketing update in your packet, but we'll move on and answer any questions you may have as we move forward.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions on that issue? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar item. You have a motion to move?
Motion to approve consent calendar?
Second.
Thank you. You have a motion and a second. Any opposed? Seeing none, consent calendar is approved. Thank you. Next is item number 10. Item number 10 is to consider and adopt proposed budget adjustments for fiscal year 2017-18. Mr. Burrows or Bray?
I'll actually have a quick summary, and then any questions, Bill can address those. What we have before you here are some mid-year, late third quarter adjustments. Most of this relates to a transfer in towards the end of the year for legal services. As you know, some of our actions involve our sister agency, the Inland Valley Development Agency, and so there is an allocation of time and resources being transferred in revenues to SBIAA to offset those expenses. The other is a transfer in capital projects. As we get more activity, particularly in the cargo spectrum, we are identifying pavement repairs on some of the aprons out there that need to be addressed. So the proposed transfer that you see in the budget adjustment is reallocating some funds out of the FBO budget into the capital projects fund so that we can stay on top of those and in advance of our customers. There's some other minor adjustments in there, just ticking with additional activities creates more utility costs, so we're trying to stay ahead of that too. Happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
Item
Item number 10, motion has been made and second. Any opposed? Seeing none, item number 10 is approved. Thank you. Next is item number 11. This is to approve amendment number 1 to the agreement with Coca-Cola and Huber LLP in an amount not to exceed $75,000 for provision of general counsel services for the San Bernardino International Airport Authority.
Yes, Mr. Huber is going to excuse himself for this item, but happy to present this. This is a proposed $75,000 adjustment to their scope of services. We are doing fine with Coca-Cola on general counsel legal services, but obviously with the additional litigation this past year, and the new allocation from IVDA to offset the $75,000, we would like to keep staff moving on those various cases that you're aware of. So happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you. Any
I'll move
questions?
the item.
We have a motion to move it. We have a second. We have a second. Any opposed? Seeing none, item number 11 is approved. This time I'll recuse myself from item number 12 and ask Supervisor Ramos to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to item 12, approve amendment number 1 to the 10.2-acre ground lease with Unocal Aviation.
So Mr. Gibbs is actually in some airport meetings right now, so I'll take this on behalf of Mark. What you have before you is a first amendment to a ground lease that was previously approved by this body with Unocal. Unocal has, again, taken on responsibility to improve some more ramp areas out on our airport. Because of some of the increased activity, though, we did make a request to Unocal that we reduce the area from 10.2 acres to 8 acres. Originally, if you look in the graphic there on the screen, we had contemplated some acreage in the existing concrete pavement to be included in their lease. Some of those pavement areas that I mentioned earlier in the budget adjustment that need to be repaired happen to be in those areas, and we are going to be needing that space for some movement of aircraft. As always, Unocal has been a great partner, and we're amenable to this change. Obviously, less land means less rent, so you have a commensurate reduction in rental income with the drop in acreage. That's roughly $4,400 per month, but obviously if they aren't getting use to the space, they ought not to pay for it. The net adjustment of that is reflected in the fiscal impact. In addition, we're talking about a decrease in the scope of improvement. They have a very immediate need for access and use of this space, and so they've agreed to construct a CTB pavement surface rather than the full asphalt surface that was originally contemplated. That allows them to get in quicker and up and running faster. As a result, then, there's no rent credit offset during the initial term of this lease. They are committed to do roughly $500,000 of improvements within a 5-month period, which is a very short time frame, but they've certainly performed many times for us. There is a clarification that was identified by one of the commissioners prior to the agreement, a typo that we have shared with legal counsel. We'll make note of. In the event that they do take down more acreage or they elect to do more improvements, that is more asphalt paving, then at that point in time it may be appropriate to discuss an additional rent credit or offset at that time. But when the report reflects that there's no rent credits during the initial term, that's because of these adjustments here. They're doing a lighter surface treatment faster and earlier, but it's under a reduced footprint. And those are the principal changes in this agreement. And I got to say, Unocal has been and always has been a good partner, so we appreciate working with them.
Thank you. And with the price per square footage, did it stay consistent with the 10.2 acres versus the 8?
So in this case here, the base rent was originally 5 cents a square foot. It is reduced to 4 cents under this amendment, and the reason being,
Going to less acreage?
so it's going to less
Reduced.
acreage, and it's a penny cheaper because they don't have access to the concrete area.
Okay.
Concrete areas resulted in a blended rate because we pay more for concrete ramp than essentially CTV or asphalt. That's why the rate went down.
Thank you. Any questions from commission members?
Will the improvements, the airport improvements to the runway, will that be expanding wider, the runway? Or
So it won't be runways at all. Where you see 8 acres,
Yeah.
they're going into dirt and making that structural pavement. That's the benefit of this agreement.
No, I thought you had said the airport's making some.
So separately, the airport will be doing some joint seal repair, and that certainly will make a much more stronger paved surface. But the net change in activity is that ramp that was originally contemplated as being exclusive, we need to keep non-exclusive because of increased activity. And Unocal has been very understanding of that.
All right, any other questions from
I'll
commissioners?
I'll move the item, and I do have a quick question.
Thank you. There's been a motion by Councilman Ovi Pepsky from Loma Linda,
Second.
second by Mayor De La Rosa from Colton.
So my
Go
question
ahead.
is, so in anticipation of them acquiring this 8 acres, does that mean that most of the airplanes that are now parked north of the tower will be moved to this new area?
So you actually have aircraft parked proximate to this right now, and that is the intent, is that Unocal would then be able to consolidate its aircraft holdings onto this new area, which frees
Okay.
up more space. And
Thank you.
again, Mr. Graham and team have been very good partners in that. So,
All right. Any other questions, comments from commissioner members? Hearing none, any public comment? All right, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. That concludes item 12. Moving on to item 13. Mayor.
Advisor. Item number 13 is to approve a loan agreement by and between the Inland Valley Development Agency, IVDA, and the San Bernardino International Airport Authority for completion of hangar number 795. Mr. Burrows?
yes, at its last meeting, the Inland Valley Development Agency took action to approve this construction loan agreement. It provides up to $3 million of capital to make immediate improvements to hangar number 795. This is our midfield hangar, approximately 55,000 square feet, located just south of our air traffic control tower. This building has had a number of improvements over the years, but is in immediate need of electrical, fire suppression, and restroom and office upgrades. Tenant demand is extremely high right now, and we do have a commitment on the IVDA side for Hillwood to function as the developer contractor to turnkey these improvements. All of the tenant demand presently require access and activity prior to October 1st of this year. So that's a very tight timeline. Both IVDA and Hillwood have committed to move forward. This loan agreement would have SBIAA repaying this amount over a 10-year term, $120,000 semi-annually, with a balloon payment of just over $1 million due at the end of term. There is no prepayment penalty, so Rialto Airport proceeds are one of the collateral aspects that SBIAA would be required to provide. With a Rialto Airport proceeds distribution, SBIAA could elect to pay off the loan early without penalty, and that's a key component because certainly we have had those distributions, and they've been very timely and appropriate. In addition, the lease revenues would also be pledged collateral for this loan. The interest is, as was the case with prior instruments of this type between the two agencies, at lay for 2%, whichever's higher, which pretty much means 2%. So happy to answer any questions.
So the lease proceeds in and of themselves would be able to satisfy the debt service?
Yes, fortunately, this structure allows, the lease proceeds to essentially be the sole mechanism for retirement of the loan, absent any other Rialto proceeds. But it was prudent to provide both sources of collateral to obtain the fair interest rate.
And in the event of the Rialto payments, that would probably give us the wherewithal then to be able to prepay the
Absolutely.
obligation.
Absolutely. Of course, if other funds come available, SBIAA in its discretion could utilize those funds as well to pay this off early.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions?
Just to, and not to muddy the waters, but are we allowed to do this simply because we're JPA versus a redevelopment agency? Because I know that after the dissolution, we weren't technically allowed to get into agreements between ourselves and other parties.
Yeah, in this
Loans.
case, the IVDA JPA is the lender, so
Okay.
there is no dissolution redevelopment tethered
That's
to
what I
that.
thought. Okay, thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion?
Motion down there, second over
Do we
here.
have a second? Any other questions? All right. Any opposed, item number 13? Seeing none, item 13 is approved. Thank you. Next is item 14, to review the status of the action plan for the San Bernardino International Airport Authority through June 30th, 2018. Mr. Burrows?
Okay, we're actually, believe it or not, in budget season. I think your respective agencies probably are in the same time period as we are. So Mr. Garay and team are actively working on draft budgets for next fiscal year, reconciling accounts, hence your budget adjustment you just reviewed and approved. So going into next month, we will be framing those budgets for presentation for your June adoption. You just saw some of the most recent marketing initiative updates. That too will be refreshed for presentation with the overall budget in June. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Any open public comments, open session comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. Any commission member comments? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned until Wednesday, May 23rd. Thank you very much, and drive safe.